We welcome Jim Brady. He is a retired fighter pilot, and he has unending views about the way that American veterans are treated in direct opposition to what Obama is currently saying. Welcome, Jim Brady. How are you?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, sir, do you find that there's a difference between the Obama rhetoric and what's actually going on? 17% of our national budget is of all spending is spent on defense of our country, although it's the main thing I think that the federal government should do. What they're proposing is to take us back to 1940 levels of armament. Is that correct?
Well, that's what they're proposing to do. I mean, they're proposing a $487 billion cut over the next 10 years as step one. Now, that's actually provided for in the sequester that unfortunately is about to take place on January 1st.
Now, tell us what a sequester is.
Well, a sequester is an automatic reduction in spending across the board, theoretically. It's not really. It's only on those programs that Obama doesn't want to impact. But it's largely largely defense and between the defense cuts of $487 billion and $500 billion in Medicare cuts, you've got $1 trillion. And as Everett Dirksen used to say about money, $1 billion here, $1 billion there, and pretty soon you're talking about real money.
That's exactly right.
I mean, this is serious money that we're talking about. To take us back to 1940 would be a tragic mistake, because if I can paint a little picture for people, in 1940 we had our U.S. Army training with broomsticks because we didn't have enough rifles to supply the few men that we had in the Army. Our military was in pitiful condition. We were in no position to respond to the attack that happened on December 7th, 1941.
Well, let's go to a cut on that real quick to remind people what happened the last time we were in this pickle.
On December 8, 1941, President Roosevelt appears before a joint session of Congress.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
And no one will ever forget that speech. And he, I'm known for bashing Democrats, but I was a big fan of Roosevelt in the way that he handled that war and all the things that he had to do. But he only had 230 ships when he started, correct?
That's right. And they're talking about getting back down to those kinds of levels for our Navy, and I'm an ex-Navy fighter pilot, and it would be a disaster. I mean, we are now faced with a very similar situation that we were faced with prior to World War II. We have a very hostile enemy or potential enemy in Iran, who everybody says within a year will have nuclear weapons and a missile that can carry it to the United States.
The world is a dangerous place, is it not, sir?
It's extremely dangerous, and it's actually now probably more dangerous than any time in my life. And I'm 73 years old, so that's a long time.
And we have the threat of North Korea and this Arab Spring.
Oh, absolutely. And the Arab Spring has turned out to be fallacious, if I may say so, because what I see is those Arab countries that are in revolt or have been in revolt, Egypt, Libya, Yemen, and now Syria. Those countries are all going to be taken over by the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is not a friend of the United States. And to think that we are somehow becoming, or those countries are becoming liberated and will evolve into democracies such as the United States is laughable. That's not going to happen.
And when we get rid of 1.5 million military personnel, which is what these budget cuts are calling for, I mean, we're going to miss 1.5 million jobs, not only in the economy, where those people will no longer be able to spend, but also in the protection of our country.
Absolutely. And what the Defense Department and the President are saying is because of new technology, we don't need as many men. That's just not the case.
Why? Because he sent one drone over to Libya that ran around in the desert for a while? That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. It's patently ridiculous, and it's not true. And if we are not very careful and reverse these cuts to some degree, I'm not saying there shouldn't be any cuts, but not these draconian cuts that he's prescribing, we are going to find ourselves unable to respond. And John McCain, who I served with in the Navy at the same time, basically has said that he's ignoring the lessons of history.
That who is Obama?
Obama. okay, and that Obama is ignoring the lessons of history. We just heard what the lessons of history are when FDR gave that speech, which I listened to when I was 3 years old in front of my grandfather's radio. I remember it very well, even though I was a small child. I still remember it because everybody was scared to death. And that is a situation we never want to be faced with, because now we are talking about nuclear weapons, not bombs out of the sky from Japanese airplanes. We're talking about missiles landing on our cities with nuclear weapons. And
Similar
that
to
can
what
never happen.
What happened in the United States in the 1960s with the Cuban Missile Crisis. I mean, I remember that in kindergarten, and your teacher was telling you to hide under your desk. I always remembered it, and I was a little bit horrified when I grew up and realized that hiding under my desk wouldn't really save me from a nuke.
Well, I was at Cecil Field during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and people don't realize we came within a half an hour of the end of the world.
Well, we've been talking with our friend Jim Brady. He is a former Navy fighter pilot. He's a tough Navy fighter pilot. He has his own blog. He's a political junkie just like me. I hope that he's going to come back on often and talk to us as this defense unfolds. Thank you so much, Mr. Brady. We really appreciate you.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And tell us what you do in your real life now.
I'm a commercial real estate broker.
There you go. And is the market picking up at all?
A little bit. Yeah, it's better. It's certainly better than it was in 10.
Well,
that's for sure.
Thank God. And we're going to be right back. We're going to talk about women in politics with a lady who knows a few things about politics. She has built one of the largest women's grassroots organizations in the country. And we're going to be back to talk about what the Obamacare tax means to women right after this message.
For more great interviews like this, make sure to tune into The Cindy Graves Show every weekday at noon on Talk Radio 600 WBOB.